G'day and welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 81, and on today's show we're doing a general question and answer. So if you have any questions about live streaming, video production, or photography, make sure you drop them in either the comments or the live chat here and we can answer them. And if you're watching after this has aired, put your comments down in the comment section and we can answer them on another week. So a little bit different look today. I was on a shoot this week, so I haven't fully set up my studio yet, and I just threw up a light. I can give you a little bit of a look of what I'm working with here. So I'm working with a T4C, which is an Atmaran bulb here, which I don't think quite has enough output from what I'm used to working with. I was just trying to see if I could simplify this in here so that we have less of, I usually had like a really big softbox in here and it takes up a fair amount of space in the studio. So just experimenting with some other things because as you probably saw, I've got a bunch of stuff in the background here that I haven't unpacked from the shoot that I was just on this week. So hence why no colored lights this week, just very basic, get it up and going setup. But great to have you here. So if you have any questions, do drop them in the chat, but we will get going with some initial questions that were from previous weeks. Some of them are a bit old, actually. So I'm catching up on people's comments here, and we can answer them. Let me see. Actually, before we get into the comments, there's one aspect of that I wanted to show this week because as I was using it today to sort of set up cameras, I was reminded of how cool this is. So this is using the control software for the Canon PTZ. So this is something that I've built here through Companion, and you can control it on a Stream Deck. I've got two cameras set up here. I'm just going to flick over to my multi-view 2. So, okay, so you should be getting a 4-up view so you can see what I'm doing as I'm cutting. So you can flick between cameras like this, but there's a couple of modes here in terms of how to cut between cameras using these presets. So the gang mode, if I turn that gang mode on, you can see I'm on time here, and if I go to camera 2, I'm on time. If I turn off gang and I change this to the reposition or like the normal mode, then as I switch between cameras, they're isolated. But if I put on gang mode, then whenever I select, so this is on time, for example. So if I selected reposition on camera 2, now all the other cameras are following suit. So it means that you can get all of your cameras to gang together, and as you make changes on one camera, the other cameras are going to reflect that. So that's the gang mode. Then there's this program preview off. So the preview mode works by when you select a camera, it'll put that into preview. So at the moment, I've got camera 2 in preview, but if I hit camera 1, then camera 1 would go into preview. I got my upstream key. This is this little thing down here. So that's going to stay on. But the background layer is what I'm talking about here. So regular sort of cutting. So I've got on the bottom of this grid, you can see camera 1 on the left and camera 2 on the right, and then in the upper part of this grid you're looking at preview and program. So now as it means that over here I can go cut and it'll switch between the camera angles. And so it's just a really easy way of, if you're on one camera and you want to just jump to another camera like camera 2, it puts it automatically into preview. So whenever you've selected a camera, you can then reposition that. So we're on camera 2's on air. Let me go back to camera 1. So let's just say camera 2's on air and I've selected camera 1. I want to make an adjustment to it. So I'm going to find a new frame and then I'm going to go cut. And then I could go to camera 2 and find a new frame on like a mid shot here, pull out to the desk, and I go cut. So that's sort of the preview cutting method. So it's putting into preview and then you can cut. But there is another method here, which is to, instead of preview mode, you could, let me just come back into where you can see that more easily. So instead of preview, you could put that onto program mode. And what this is doing is as you select a preset, it's actually also cutting the ATEM alongside that. And there's two variations to that, which is if you have it on the reposition mode, so that's like a very fast reposition like this, then it's going to pause before it cuts. Whereas if you have it on the time or the speed mode, so that's more of like a camera maneuver that's on air, the cut is going to happen instantaneously. So you can hit cut and it'll be doing the camera movement as well. So that's the difference between using the program mode between reposition and on air. So I'm on time at the moment, so it's a 2 second. Let's put it on a 7 second maneuver. I'm going to select camera 1. Now you can see it's not going into preview here because it's on the program mode. And it means, and I know I'm on a mid shot here and I want to go into a close up. And because I'm on the time mode, when I press close up, it's going to cut immediately and zoom in. So it puts it in and it does the maneuver. So then we can just sort of work our way around like that. So if I had camera 2 and I just wanted to do a bit of a slow reveal, I could cut immediately and it will pull out to the next shot. But if I wanted to not have those camera maneuvers on air, then that's where the reposition, or in the camera software for Canon, it's called normal. But repo here is what I've nicknamed it. So on the repo mode, what that means is I'm on camera 2, and when I go to camera 1, see I'm on a close-up. But let's just say I wanted to cut from this shot of the desk to a wide shot of me on camera 1. The camera needs a little bit of time to get there, so there's around about a 2.5 second delay between when I press the button and when it cuts. And what you'll see is in the interim, there will be the camera maneuver in on camera 1. So I am going to press a wide shot, maneuvers, and then it cuts a second later. So where that's really useful is if you could imagine in like a podcast setup where you're cross shooting and you've got a sort of a mid shot and a tight shot of someone, and you want to sort of move between those shots, but you don't want that reposition to be on air. You just want that to happen very quickly. It means that, so for example, on camera 2, and I realize camera 2 is a bit out of focus here. I don't know why it's lost focus there. If I want to go into what's good, like a close up here, just making sure I'm on the right thing here. So I could press that, it'll reposition, focuses, and then it cuts. So that's how you can use the delay on the reposition mode to find a new frame and then cut across to it. So hopefully that helps for some of the cool things that you can do in the PTZ profile. The other really neat one is, and I'll just jump back to program here, so you should just be able to see the full screen view. And the other really neat one is this loop mode. So what that means is, I'll go to camera 1 to demonstrate this. So it's either loop off or it's on, and you'll see when you turn on the loop, it automatically disables the gain because the looping is something that needs to happen individually for each camera. So that's where when you activate loop, it turns off the gain. So if you wanted to turn back on the gain, you'd have to go in and turn that on. So I've enabled loop, and what that means is the next time I press the next preset, it's going to go between the current preset and then the new preset that I've got it on, and it's going to do that over the amount of time that I've set here. So not the repo, I probably want to go to the time mode, and 2 seconds is probably a little bit too fast. So I'm going to make it 7 seconds, or if you come into adjust, that's where you could manually set this to like 6 seconds, for example. And so I'm on a wide shot here, and let's just say I want to go into a sort of mid shot. So we're not going to get too close. I'll demonstrate a bit closer in a bit. But imagine that this shot of me is like a wide shot of your venue, and you want a wide shot of the venue that has a little bit of life to it. So rather than just being static, it can sort of either zoom in and out, or it could sort of pan backwards and forwards between the 2 points. So in this case, I'm going to use preset 1 and preset 2, which I have preset to specific points, to positions in terms of shot size and exposure and all that. So I'm on 1 and I'm going to press 2. And I realize I left program on, so let's turn that off. Put it back onto preview. And there we go. And so we're pulling in and out. Let me just go to, I'll cut this one so you can see what is happening here. So on the deck now, you can see loop is active. If I go over to camera 2, it looks different. Loop is off. So camera 1, loop is active, and it'll just highlight each time it hits that new point. And so let's just say I've gone into a mid shot. Now I could hit close up, and it's going to go into my close up position. And after 7 seconds, when it hits that, it's going to pull back out to the mid shot. And you could do this for, just setting the camera left or right if you wanted to get the pans of a stage. Ideally, that's what it's for, to make it very easy to set up a sort of trace and not having to go into the back end and doing any programming, because you can just build like if you long press these buttons, you'll save the current parameters. And then when you short press these buttons, you're going to recall those 2 points. So that's built into this profile by default. When you activate the loop, all of these preset buttons and also all of up to 36 buttons here, we could select. So, if I have a different looping pattern that I want to do, I could use presets 18 and 19, for example, to get a whole different camera look, and very easy to execute that. And I could also say on the back end, if you do go into Companion and actually play with the preset, there are up to 5 points that you can select to put into a trace. So you could go from camera 1 to 3 over a certain number of seconds, and then you could go to preset 5 over a different amount of seconds, and then you could go to 32, and you could, so you could bounce around 5 different points, and then you can either loop through those points, or you can just end, or you can go forward through that sequence and back through that sequence. So they're all the options that are available for sort of a built-in loop feature, trace feature. And then when I turn off the loop, you'll see that it will just finish the last cycle that it's on, and it'll stop on that preset. So it's a very smooth way of doing camera maneuvers on air with your Canon PTZ cameras that doesn't require an operator to sort of go between there. You can sort of set and forget almost. So let me just make sure I've got all my settings here. And I'm going to come back to, make sure we come back to, where are we? To here. All right, back to there. Excellent, thanks for the question here. Let me see. Arlekin says, did I read that right? Arlekin Players Theatre says, is there a way to activate the upstream key as a fade-in using Companion? Thank you in advance. Your tutorials are incredible. Proud owner of a hyperdeck Companion module. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I'm glad that the hyperdeck Companion model that's available on my website has been useful for you. So you're talking about activating an upstream key as a fade-in using Companion. It's been a while since I've played with that. I think you would really need to, you need to set it in the preview and then do an auto transition across. So let me see if I can pull up the ATEM software so we can have a look at what we're talking about here. I'm going to go to this one. Let me see if I got that. Okay. So if you were just looking at this in the ATEM software, what we are looking at is, that's maybe not the best layout to do it in, but I have under my upstream key page with the Companion, keys here. And so key 4, I'm using, it's always on. That's what's running the graphics with the green screen. And key 1 is this little circle that's putting on. here, and then so under Mix Effects 1, and you'll see this one highlighted when I turn that on and off. So that's what I'm doing manually here with the button, but I could also click it to turn that on and off. And I'm using the pattern and I'm using a circle. So that's where this upstream key is coming from. You can see I've reduced the size to 47.5%. If I was to adjust that, we could make that a bit bigger or smaller. And it's turning on and off like this. Let me go back to my layout, which I had with the preview program. Okay, so in this grid, again, we're looking at preview program. So as I cut, you'll see that it moves like it's a hard cut between it. And if I do auto, if I actually press the button, it's going to do a transition. So on the program side, you can see it's fading. So what you need to do in the software is like this would be off and this would be on. And so this is the upstream key. And really what I need is my camera 1 on air. So that's what we're working with there. Maybe I'll just change the input so it looks something different. So I can see like picture in picture. Maybe I should do a picture in picture so it's not as, what am I doing? Upstream key, and I can go to something like that. Okay, so I've got a picture in picture, upstream key, and I want to fade that across. So now simply all I need to do is hit auto, and from the audience's perspective, program has faded in and you're bringing on, I guess, the difference between what was in preview and what's already in program. So that's the way that you would get a sort of smooth transition on and off. Oh, sorry, hit cut again. There we go, off like that. And in Companion, to do that, you would need to put that into preview and then run an auto transition. So let's go over to Companion, and I'll build under, where have we got space? It's under page 2. We want to create a button here called X-Fade Key 1. How about we do that? Okay, so we're going to say upstream key, set the inputs. I quite like from variables, but you can also have it preset. I'm using Mix Effect Layer 1, Key 1. The fill source is going to be camera 2. And then the key source doesn't really matter here because we're not keying out anything. Okay, so I got the wrong ATEM. Let me just come back here. I've got 3 ATEMs plugged in here. Sorry, I'm also not showing you what I'm doing. Let me come back to, okay. Sorry, so we're in Companion. I realized I didn't show you the button. Let me back up. Okay, so I'll just go back from the beginning. All right, so I'm gonna make a new button called X-Fade Key 1. And we're gonna go upstream key. And I need to find the correct ATEM, which is ATEM 1. You can either do set from variables if you want to put in a variable or just a number, or you can say set inputs. So ME1, key 1, and I'm going to use Canon number 2. So I'm going to use this shot. It's going to be the fill source. So now I've set that. That's the equivalent in here of going, hey, set the source to input 2 on here. And then we're going to go upstream key, go back down to, where are we? Set type, set on air. I think it's set on air. Some of these have changed. No, not set on. Set on air will put it straight on. Upstream key, inputs, where are we? Set inputs type. I think it changed the type. Is that right? No. Some of these have been updated. DV properties, set inputs from variable. can't remember the command. Let me go and find what it is. Sorry, ATEM transition. Oh, it's called transition. Okay. Change selection component. Okay, so it's not, it is an upstream key, but it's called transition. So we go page 2, transition. So we're going change selection component. I think that's right. ME1, I want the key 1. Nah, that's not right. Transition. Select components in transition. Gets a little funny here. Okay, ME1 background. I could say no change. Key 1. I think include. Let's see. As I said last time, since I've used this, some of the commands have changed. So I'm gonna turn that one off. I'm gonna delete that one. Select transition. Let me see. What are we doing here? Select no change. Include. Is that in my? Let me just turn that off. And then if I go, okay. So you can see if I've turned off my key, which means like the next time I do a transition, then, so I've turned that on and that has enabled this yellow key on button. So then the next thing I just need to add is auto, ATEM, perform auto transition. Okay. So now hopefully you're seeing, yeah, I think you're seeing that. I'm just trying to see what I've got turned on here. Okay, so we've got no key on. Where is that? Preview. It's a bit funny because we're going to have, let me just put camera 1 into source. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing. And here we should be able to, I mean, they shouldn't be on at all. So nothing on. And now we're wanting to get camera 2 picture-in-picture as a key to transfer on. And you'll see that's how we can fade on the key using Companion. All right, we got there. Excellent. Hope that helped. Let's get back to my layout here. And I'm going to get back to my actual program shot here. Cool. Another great question. How do you maintain consistent f-stop on both of your PTZ cameras when zooming in on subjects and varying distances to ensure the exposure stays the same on both cameras? That is a great question. And I actually had to do that this morning because as I was showing you under the, where is it? Under, I'm going to show you my back here. So this little 4-foot tube that I've set up here didn't quite have enough output compared to the 300D that I normally had in a 300D Mark II in a big softbox. So I had to boost the gain on the Canon cameras to compensate, which is not ideal because ideally I'd like to have enough lighting input for the Canon cameras to be on, where are we back here? Ideally I want the Canon cameras to be on sort of 0 decibel of gain, but I had to boost it up to about 6. So it's not too bad, but I did want a little more brightness because I was looking a little dark. And so what I did for that was go back to my close up here, and I can see I need to reset my, where are we? Here, picture in picture, go back to pattern. All right. I think I need to move that one up a bit. X and Y. did I get that right? Oh no, that's the actual. I need to go to DVE and X and Y. I'm just moving my little face around. All right, about there. So in the way I did that was going into my camera profile here, and you can see under adjust, this gain function here is now 6 decibels. So I'm on camera 1. So it was normally like, I think I had it on about 2. So 0 would be like that. Ideally, I'd be shooting on 0 and I would have enough light in here, and I could do that if I had my big lights, but like I said, they're packed down from a production this week, so I had to go in here and boost the gain. And where are we? So it went up to 6, and then that became kind of the look there. And once I've set it on to 6, then I have to kind of go through my presets and save over the top of them. So that meant, what have I got? I've got, I don't think this one's been set. Yeah, so for example, this ECU of, where are we? Like, that's sort of showing you something like my phone, you know, like here's the phone. You can see how that went darker. So I would select the preset, I would come in, I would adjust the gain to what was good, and then I'd just come back here and I'd long press to save over the top of it. And then I've got my preset saved. And the reason you need to do that is because you're right that it would change effects. Sorry, getting to your, I guess part of your original question was the zoom aspect of it, because what will happen is on full wide over here, I think it's about 1.8 aperture. And then when I zoom in, it's going to stop down to about f2.4 or 2.8. And so you will see it darken as it zooms in. So the way I simply do that is I start at my darkest aperture. And so I just go like, how far in am I going to need to zoom? And I will set that. And then, so let me come back to over here. So I will come into my closest preset, I'll save that, and then I'll zoom back out to number 2, and I'll save that. So what that means in my settings is that I'm basically working always on, I guess, 2.8. So even when I pull wide, you can see this is still 2.8, setting a constant aperture. So I lose some of that low light benefit on a wide angle, but it means that when I zoom in, there's no change in the exposure. I realize I got there in a long-winded way, and that was your initial question, but a good question. All right. Burt says, I'm trying to use HDMI to SDI converters to run 150-foot cable. Is it plug and play, or do I need to install any software for the converter boxes? You should be fine, I think. It just depends on whether you're running 3G or 12G. So if you're running a 3G signal, sort of like standard high definition, like 1920 by 1080, those cables are, I think you can get about 300 feet off the top of my head. I would look that up, but I think about 300 feet of SDI is fine. Make sure it's matching your signal. And if you've got I was actually just plugging them back in this morning. So if you've got a 3G converter box, 3G cable is fine for 300 feet. And if you're using like a 4K signal, then you're going to need a 12G box, and you're going to need like a higher spec cable to match, which is something to think about if you're installing somewhere, depending on what you're laying it through. Like if you're just running it through a venue and it's in and out, then that's probably fine. But if you're installing in a wall during a build, I would say it's probably better to put in a 12G cable, so that down the line, if you need to switch out or like upgrade to 4K, then you can do that without having to having to sort of rewire. Did you observe any improvements in the low light performance with the firmware update of 1.5 for Canon's PTZ cameras? I actually haven't tested that. I did see that they put that out. But I don't know. I haven't done like a side by side, but today's probably a good way to look at it because I feel like I am running on a higher gain and the picture seems okay. I think it's okay. Oops, not this one. Where am I? This one. I keep hitting the button twice. Seems okay to me. I wonder if I, as you boost the gain, yeah, it's probably, it seems to hold. Like this is going up to about 12. There's obviously, let me just go iris, reduce the iris and boost the gain. And I can hit, let me just go back to this one. No, wait, not this one. This one, so you can see what I'm doing. Flip that around. PTZ1, adjust. So I'm on 20. Ooh, really blowing out there. Let's bring this RS back down. Let's go full gain. What do we got? 33. All right, I don't even know how much this goes up to. 50 or something. 36. Okay, so this is 36 decibel of gain, and I'm compensating with the aperture to get myself back down. F8. I would have thought I'd go past F8. Maybe not. I'd have to load up the actual 7101. Let me see. Ooh, that looks a bit grainy. I'm in the auto tracking here. Let me just switch over to, you can see what I'm doing here. Where am I? This one. All right. Ah, I lost it. When I hit presets, when I build different camera profiles, it goes to, like, it resets the profile. So I lost that. So you can see what I'm doing here, and I'm going into camera 1, adjusting. It looks like, okay, so we're on 36 decibel of gain, and the iris got shifted. Whoops, I'm going down. Let me just go to the camera page here, and we can have a look. We can go F8. I didn't realize that was F8. All right, so this is looking a bit grainy. Looks like on my monitor. Actually, no, it doesn't look like on my monitor. I'm just watching it further away. So this is way more gain than you would ever want to use. And you can see there's like a ton of stuff in there. I feel like you could probably use it, oh, not that one. You could probably use it around about 18. Maybe it's probably the upper end. The upper end of what would be still grainy. And then 6 is what I was on today. So just adjusting with that. Yeah, so I haven't done side by side before and after, but it's ideally I would be shooting on 0 dB of gain, and I don't quite have enough light in here for that. So I did notice with the update there, for some reason the commands that Canon has for the 300 and 500 versus the N700, I haven't tested the 100, but like some of those, they're not all the same commands for the same things. And it seems like they've sort of broken some things in Companion, because, I mean, Companion's sort of reverse engineered to say like, okay, Canon's using these commands and we're gonna speak to these, commands. And in the latest firmware update, they've changed some things. So for example, the PTZ zooming is like super slow. So if I zoom in and out, like like normally I would be able to set fast, but it's just, anyway, I got to get in there and figure out what's going on there. But so that did change in the update between 1.4 and 1.5. Something on Canon's end has changed the zoom speed somewhere under, where would that be? Somewhere under there. And so, I don't know, I need to have a look at that, but that's a whole nother thing on GitHub. All right. Excellent. Keep the questions coming. Let me just, I had one here from before, which is a very long one. This is a comment that was sent in a while back. Using a Canon CRN 300 and 500 as companion, upgraded the firmware. Oh, okay, this was actually what I was just talking about, which was zooms in and out very slowly. Appreciate it if you could improve it. For reference, when I asked Canon, they said the firmware cannot be updated to the previous version. So if you've updated from 1.4 to 5, then you can't go back to 4. And the latest version obviously has the auto tracking with the PTZ cameras, but yeah, so just be aware of that. If you upgrade the zooming function, if you're using companion, needs a bit of a fix, which is probably something to do on GitHub. And yeah, some of those things need a bit of a look at. But I recommend going to GitHub, and there's a PTZ module in there for Canon on GitHub, and put a request in there. Martin says, is it not possible to adjust the ND filter settings manually on the CRN 300? Is it only automatic? It's been a while since I looked at this. Let me have a look. So we've got image stabilizer, and then we've got, is it image quality? No. Where is our, I'm not even sure that it has a ND unit. Where is it? Image quality, sharpness. There's always like this extra page. Sorry, I'm not showing you what I'm doing again. Where is the ND? I feel like there is an ND somewhere. AF, PTZ, digital zoom, preset, other functions. Yeah, I don't know that the 300 actually has an ND. I think the 500 and the 700 do. Could be wrong there, but it's, oh, here we go, ND. Auto on and off. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not seeing any like Iris auto. I don't see any adjustment for that. It's either auto or off under the exposure tab. Thank you. Just got that. Yeah. In the time that I've used the CRN 300, I've never really seen a ND. As I said, I don't think it has an ND in it, even though there's that setting there. Whereas it does have it in the 700. Yeah. All right. Next question from Ted says, I want to add another stream deck to my arsenal, but I'm having a hard time mapping to the other deck. It appears the main profile works when both decks are plugged in, but I'm trying to allocate certain buttons to the other. Can you elaborate on this, please? I realized I actually didn't have my additional stream decks. Let me see. Okay. All right, I'll get another stream deck out. So the way I've built my profiles is that they can be run with either up to 4 stream decks, or they can be run with 1. I'm going to go to here. So I quite like using 1 because it just keeps the desk very small and clear, and Whereas, but then also there's other times where you really want to have another set of buttons, and having more profiles can help. And for some reason, this shot is always out of focus. Why is that? That is focused there. And then again, I would just, but it's so freaking slow. I gotta fix that. Gotta have that fixed. Out, and is that wide enough? All right, and I'll save that one. So we should be able to go between here and something a bit wider to see 2 stream decks, and I'll go in a cable. Hopefully this will reach. So we plug in the stream deck, and this one pops up. This is number 2, and at the moment I've got it set up to be independent, but I can link that in my profile, and so I'll show you how to do it in my profile, and then you can also just kind of from that you should be able to learn how to just like build it yourself if you're looking for that. Okay, so we've got 2 stream decks accessing the same profile independently. The way that I run them is on my homepage has sort of 5 pages within it. So there's this sort of switching page, there's a page full of shots, there's a scene page, which is what I run most of my show on. The show has all of like what's recording and all the decks and live streaming encoders and that kind of stuff. And then the queue page, which is what is running the run of show as I step through each section of the show. And then I can sort of action that on up here using this queue. And so it means that I can, you know, on my second panel, I could keep an eye on the show. And then on my first panel, I could be actually activating things between, what are we on at the moment? This one. So I could come into a close up and come out to that or pull full wide. So that is how I sort of run the show. Come into this one here. So most I'm switching here, but sometimes I want to like reach across and have a secondary panel or a third and a fourth, and that is possible through the profile. What I have is, I realize this is getting out of frame here, is under surfaces. This is where all of your surfaces is going to be. So you can add an emulator. I just put a new one in there, and you could call it something like iPad. I already have one, so I will call it that. So that's a virtual surface. If you want to get something like, yeah, I just reach over here and grab an iPad. So again, this is, if you had one stream deck and then you had an iPad or even just a computer, you could have a whole different surface that is controlled independently. Now, there's a couple of ways to build this. What's possible now in version 3.3.1 is you can, under settings, choose how big you want your grid to be. So by default, this will be 0703, I think. So it'll be like a 32 button layout. It'll be the Stream Deck XL by default. I've just added in this row down here. Notice that the numbers start at 0, so this is column 0. So this button would be 00, which I don't think I got in early enough when this was being developed, but I would have loved for it to be 11 because I feel like it'd be more intuitive to scan down the rows, and you're like down here, you would think this is, you know, row 4, column 4, but that's actually row 5, column 5. So you've always got to like +1 to it. But it means that you can add in more to a grid. Let me go back to settings. You can go edit grid size. So by default, that would be 3. So if I add 4 to it, I could make it 7. Gotta be careful you don't go the other way, because you can if you delete rows, your buttons are gone, and there's no undoing in this world. So if I go save, now I have essentially two grids like this, right? So I've stacked that, and I could build in my profile. I could build one surface on the top here and one on the bottom, and that is, you know, you could have, I guess, sort of infinite buttons. So for each page, you're still limited to 99 pages. So you've only got 99 pages that you can use, but each page could have technically unlimited number of buttons. And so starting at 0, 0, you could expand that grid out to the right or down or up or backwards. So you've got like a huge canvas that you can use, and you can basically think about getting whatever surface you have and placing that somewhere within the grid. So let's have a look at this surface, which at the moment is actually pointing to the same buttons as this surface. So all of my stream decks are just pointing to the first 32 buttons in here. And then I'm using each surface independently. So we're looking down at, where have we got? So these are the two that are plugged in. And they got some that are offline. So Stream Deck 1 and 2. And you can see if I go settings, it's standalone, and it is in like the current page is 3, and then this is the horizontal offset in the grid is starting at 0, 0. So if let's go to my second Stream Deck. So I'm talking about this one, and we're going to reorient it. So instead of it starting at 0, 0, I could have it move down. Lost it. Where did it go? The vertical offset could be, if I move it down 4, you can see I'm like rotating through the buttons here. I'm actually pushing where in that companion grid the surface is looking. Or I could go negative the other way. Let me go, what have I got? Minus 2, 1. So this is 0. So I basically need to go, there we go. All right, so now close that, and you can see on page 1, is it? No, what am I on? Page, this is getting hard because I haven't set this up. Okay, it's on, this page is on page 4, and it's addressing these buttons here. The next thing you can do is, I haven't done this for a while. Okay, so we can go add group, and I'm going to go, just call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it deck 1 and 2, save. And then group, I can go to settings. Okay, I've got that one. So now I can come down to, if I mess up anything here, Stream Decks 1 and 2. So settings, I could, instead of standalone, I could add that into deck 1 and 2. So it's in this group, and it's 0, 0. Okay, and then where are we? Stream Deck 2. I've got a lot of things going on here. Add that to the deck, and remember, now it's already remembers where it's at, but I had it at 4. Close. All right, so now it's probably not the best view of it. I go back to here, get a little more space so that you have the same sort of layout. My cables are not very good. So now as I go through each page, so remember in my profile I had these 5 pages on the first 5 pages, and you can see that this second Stream Deck is addressing those buttons that were under here. So same sort of thing. This is the overhang here. So that's how you can put the Stream Decks into a group, and like you could do the same thing side by side. That probably would have been a better analysis, but I didn't have any buttons hanging off to sort of show you as I sort of flip through the pages. That's how you group it. I'm just going to ungroup it. Let me see. Settings. It's going to go standalone. And settings, standalone, close. And I'm going to go back to Stream Deck 2. And I'm going to make this back to 0. So because I've pre-built a lot of my profile around what was just this page, and I want every Stream Deck to be able to access all of those buttons, the way that I've built up multi-deck uses is a little bit different. It's probably a lot more complicated. So you wouldn't necessarily build this, but it's like already built into my profile, which is under the menu button. There is, you can control surfaces 1, 2, 3, and 4, either in tandem or just on their own. So at the moment, these are separate. And I could cycle through the 3, 4, 1, 2, like that. So now I've selected surfaces 1 and 2. And what that means is when I go back to here, this is changing here. So I'm selecting, there's a second and there's also a third page, and then there's a menu, like freezing this menu so that's always accessible in, so if you have 4 Stream Decks up there. So what that means, it's similar to the grouping. If you're starting from scratch, probably the grouping is more simple, but it means that now in my, let me see, so I've got home shot, scene, show, and cue for number 1, like deck 1, and then I've got another 4 pages, home shot, scene, show, cue for deck 2, which is this one, and then a third deck in there. So if we go to home 2, you can see it's actually just blank. So this was sort of space that was created for the user to come in here and add their buttons in here, new button, like that, and then you can sort of build it out that way. So I might continue on with that, or I might change it in the future. I'm not totally sure yet. It works well for giving flexibility around either linking the decks or using them separately. You know, for example, you might, if you're switching yourself, then you might want these decks used in tandem so you have more screen real estate. So for example, if I come into, am I together? Yeah. Into the menu and go to the auxiliary, you can see the benefit of them being in tandem is that I can come into, instead of having to go change here to come into my input page, I can go back to my, like my home page, come into the menu, come into auxiliary, and this is preloading all of the inputs. So I can select which auxiliary I want to target, and then I can do the routing on this one that's switching as I updating to show you which inputs on which. So that's why you might need more canvas space, because if you got a ATEM 4ME, there's a ton of things going on there, and if you go to 4ME, there's actually like a third page here that would show channels 21 to 40. So that's available as well. But then at other times, maybe you want to use have VLC, or you want to have H2R. Maybe you want like a, sorry, not H2R, what I'm saying. I don't think have we got it in here? Where is it? Hyperdeck. You might want to have like a hyperdeck operator who is sitting separately and just has an independent deck that they are controlling, and it doesn't affect the rest of your switching. So that's the grouping, and that's how to sort of go around doing that. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me go. All right, Martin says the Sierra N500 allows manual control. Yeah, I think that was probably one of the upgrades of, I mean, the 300 to the 500 is a much bigger camera. It's got a bigger sensor. It's more pro, it's got XLR audio inputs. It's definitely a step up, and I'd probably say it has better low light than the 300, and I think, yeah, has a ND in there. Not this one. Where are we? Martin says, if the venue permits, would you position your PTZ camera closer to the stage to avoid zooming in too much, which reduces light? Yeah, I would say play with that in your particular venue. And some of it is just, you know, either what's easy or what's safety for, you know, where you're running cables within a venue. And but it sounds like you've got the option of closer or wider, and then just look at, like, if you're fully wide, you know, is that too wide? Does that sort of pull you back away too much from it? Or does it give you a sense of like a really great big space that you're in? Or do you want to bring your camera closer to the stage? And yes, you could use a sort of more open aperture like 1.8, and that would help with the low light capabilities of that. And Arlekin Players Theatre says, thanks so much. Thanks, exactly what I was looking for, and had no idea how to do the transition button. Yeah, I think it's funny that it would sort of an upstream key thing, but it doesn't have, when you search for it, it doesn't have that language. So look for transition in there. And if you're ever looking for what commands are available, you can always click on this little folder button and then come to your actual module. So I've got ATEMs here. So before I'd pulled up ATEM 3, but I actually wanted just my regular ATEM. And you can just sort of scroll through all the many, many commands that are under here, and then you can sort of read them, and you can also just like click them all in. So if you're looking at all of these transitions and can be like, what can I do with transition? Then that's one way to just dump them in and then go like, oh, okay, that's talking about the thing that I want, or it's actually not related to that. All right. What else we got? All right, I think that's probably about all. So reaching the top of the hour. Thanks for contributing your questions. If you have other questions that come up in this episode, drop them in the comments and I can answer them on next week's show. But until then, davidjoshuaford.com is where my website is, which has profiles. There's a sort of free profile that you can get to download and get going with the ATEM with like a 4-input switcher. So feel free to grab that. And until then, I will see you next week, and take care. Bye.